why I decided to choose this, let's say, global or complex topic of the global challenges or global situation in the agri-food trade, and what kind of the opportunities and difficulties we have due to this global situation, because it's about our future. It's about the future not only of agricultural and food sector of Ukraine, but it's about the future of our country and Ukrainian economy in general. There we will be able to find our place in the global economy in the nearest future, and how exactly this place of Ukrainian economy in the global economic system will look like. Among the more or let's say most important, I would say, most important long-term challenges and trends which you are hearing every day, maybe about from newspapers or from different kind of discussions, events, and news like BBC or CNN as well. This is the year which will impact already, which are already impacting the agricultural production, and not only production, but in general agricultural and food sectors, not only in Ukraine but worldwide. This is population growth. This is the growth of the global GDP, but not only the growth of the global GDP. There are more interesting point about the global GDP is redistribution of this gross domestic product within the countries and regions, and accelerating urbanization. Let's have a closer look on all these long-term trends. You see here how the population growth or population development on Earth will look like in the next years. There are some discussions, by the way, among the scientists. I read about that just in couple of weeks ago in magazine Foreign Affairs. There are some of the scientists already adapting, but we will have such a strong population growth worldwide. But well, the main forecasts by the international organizations and prominent scientific think tank are saying us that till 2020, till 2030 or 2050, we will have almost, if I'm not mistaken, 10 billion people on the planet, and everybody wants to eat something. So the main challenge and opportunity for Ukrainian agriculture here is that we have to feed the world. That sounds a little bit like, you know, pathetic, but I think that that's really one of the core strategic tasks for our sector in a midterm and long-term perspective here. As for the GDP growth, you can see here interesting point that the population worldwide in the last years and in the next several years will get at average richer. That means that the GDP is growing faster than the population worldwide is growing. What does it mean for us as agricultural producers or food producers? That means that the average consumer worldwide will be able to spend more money on their food consumption. That means for us that in many regions worldwide, not only in Western Europe or North America, but in such regions like Asia, like, by the way, some African countries, like Middle East or Near East, more and more consumers will be able to spend their money on organic, on healthy food, on high quality animal food, or maybe not animal food, but the plant protein resources like Beyond Meat products or something like that. That depends on the development of these megatrends, consumption megatrends. We will talk about them a little bit later. And the third very important megatrend, long-term megatrend, which we see, and I'm absolutely sure that the same situation we have here in Ukraine as in many countries worldwide. This is the quite fast level of the urbanization. You see also in our country that more and more people don't want to live in rural territories. despite maybe some, let's say, pluses or some advantages which we have there. We want to live in big cities like Kiev or like any other oblast centers here in Ukraine. The same situation we do see or we do have in other countries in the world, like China, in countries in Latin America, but also United States. And by the way, European Union is not exclusion here. They also suffering from that, and we are also trying to deal with this phenomenon. That was rather the long-term perspective or global long-term picture of the world. Let's talk about the current situation, state of play where we are living in. 2020 and even current year, how it looks like. When we are looking at the, newspaper stands, you will see a lot of different topics, but most of them are gathered here. This is a trade wars. This is different kind of developments in the international and global trade. On one hand, we do have during last decades the process of globalization. You are aware of that. The global trade development, WTO is getting stronger, but what's happening now, it's a little bit advertent process. The WTO is getting rather weaker, also due to Mr. Trump's tweets, but not only. Due to their huge bureaucratic systems which we developed within the organization, and I think that WTO, by the way, need to be reformed, but that's one topic. Another thing is that we do have, due to the weakening of the World Trade Organization, we do have the development of the many bilateral and regional free trade agreements. Look at the European Union, what we are doing during last years. They are trying to complete as many as possible free trade agreements worldwide, starting with Vietnam, ending up with Mercosur agreement, which is actually bigger than free trade. It's about association, more or less the same association agreement like with Ukraine. And there are a lot of such examples worldwide. Trade wars, again, Mr. Trump is our hero here, and what is going on between the United States and China, what is going on between the United States and Canada, what is going on between the United States and the European Union. All these processes, trade wars or whatever, it's influencing Ukrainian agri-food trade exports directly or indirectly. In some cases, we are winning due to these developments. In other cases, it's rather challenging developments for us. Well, climate change and limited resources. As for climate change, I don't know your opinion, you can say it again later, but we see it in Ukraine already, in many of Ukrainian regions, the shift of the geographical zones for the production of different kind of the agricultural plants, like corn, like wheat, or some kinds of the oil seeds. We do see this shift from the south to north. That means that climate change is already there. We do have in many of Ukrainian regions already 8 out of 10 years too dry to work without an irrigation systems. And what we can observe, all of us actually, that the externalities, we are also getting more often. We're getting more often here in Ukraine, and we're getting more severe. We do have more dry days and very hot days in the summer, but we also do have a lot of quite cold days during the winter with minus 20, 25, etc. So again, these externalities. Limited resources, limited natural resources. Agriculture is about managing effective management of natural resources. It's about the management of the soils, of the water, of forest resources, but also aquaculture, for instance, so fishery, etc. So it's about natural resources, and we are naturally limited. For instance, water. I don't know how is your feeling. My personal feeling that the next crisis will be about the fresh water if we will not find the solution for that. Population growth, I mentioned it already, and the changing of a global diet. This is about these megatrends. Who from the people present here in their audience already tried plant-based meat or any other protein products, like Beyond Meat? Yeah, one hand is raised, two hands, okay. That's one of the megatrends. That's one of the diet changes. We do have more and more vegetarians, more and more vegans worldwide, mostly definitely in the developed regions of the world, so in Western Europe, the European Union, Northern America, but also in Ukraine. On the other hand, we do have the earlier mentioned changes in the diets. The middle class, upper middle class in such regions like Asia, like Africa, and some other regions, we are earning more money, as we said before. They are getting more money, and we want to spend this money on good steaks, not Beyond Meat steaks, but real steaks, on wine, on also dairy products, on organic products, on healthy products, have healthy diets, but rich diets, yeah, so as they imagine them as rich. So there are a couple of different megatrends which we should observe very closely, again, as an important agricultural and food producer worldwide. Well, once more about the newspapers. That's about the analytics. Here are a couple of maybe figures for you. It's too I think that maybe it's not so interesting for you, but nevertheless it's interesting to see how the prices developed. And that's, by the way, about the another important topic which we are discussing very often here in Ukrainian agriculture and food sector, and that will be my question to you, by the way, afterwards. What I've heard quite often when I worked at the ministry, that is the critics about that, well, what are you proud about? You're proud about the 49 million tons of grain of exports. This is nothing. This is commodity. This is cheap. This is not so high as a price. We should export some processed food. So my question to you will be: is it good or bad for Ukraine that we are exporting a lot of commodities like grain, like oilseeds, etc., because they are really quite volatile at the prices, and the market conductor, market situation, global market situation is also, very, very, let's say, mixed normally, and very, very, how should I say it? The market situation normally is reacting very closely on such kind of the things like, again, tweets of Mr. Trump, or some mechanisms which are bringing the global commodity markets in balance. So this is an interesting question still for me. Well, when we are talking about the growing of the markets and why actually Ukrainian agriculture and food sector is important and will be important at least in the next 10, 20 to 30 years, definitely. You can again have a look at the picture how the consumption of different product groups is going to develop in different world regions. The numbers are huge, as for me, and you can imagine that that's again there. You see the source of this information. This is FAO and OECD, so this is not something that we calculated at the ministry. It's like objective picture here, and again, why do I see a lot of potential for our agri-food sector in the next years in Ukraine, and why we should invest in it and why we should try to develop it, including, by the way, also definitely some processed products. The reason is quite simple, and you see it here. The consumption of major product groups worldwide is going to grow very, very at very, very high rates here. Here is a closer look to the European Union, on the European Union, market. Why European Union? Because we do have the association agreement with European Union, we do have the DCFTA, Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement with European Union, and at the moment the European Union is the number two export market for us. For the agri-food products after the Asian countries, because Asian countries, including such huge markets like China or India, we are number one without any competition. But the European Union is number two here, and they are very important from a strategical point of view for us. They are not only important for us as an agricultural market, but they are also important for us as an economic partner. I think that the European Union will still be very important strategic economic partner and political, definitely, partner for Ukraine for the next, again, decade at least. And that's why I wanted also you to have a closer look, maybe somebody already heard about that, on the latest developments in the common agricultural policies of the European Union, which are, by the way, also having directly or indirectly an impact on the Ukrainian agri-food sector. Why? Because when we are in the free trade agreement, when we do have such kind of the free trade zone, you know that the euro integration is among the priorities of our economic development in Ukraine. It means that we are taking over, or at least we are approximating a lot of the Ukrainian legislative acts, norms, standards, etc., towards the European ones. So we should also have a close look, very close look, on what's going on there in the agricultural sector and how the regulations at the European Union market are going to change in the next years till 2027. We have this projection now, because again, due to the association agreement and euro integration, it will come earlier or later to us as well. What I think is the most important points here, which we should take into account already now. This is definitely environmental care, preserve landscapes, biodiversity, climate change action, everything that has to do with the environmental issues. Why? Because on the one hand, that means that the European Union producers, agricultural producers, will get probably, with a high probability, high level of probability, from 2021, there are higher standards, environmental standards for their production. And maybe you've seen already in the news that some of the, there are a lot of protests at the moment in the European Union, farmers' protests in Germany, in France, in the Netherlands, and they are protesting not only against the lower prices which we have in their supermarket chains at the moment, but we are mostly protesting against their future common agricultural policies, because we're afraid that due to these higher environmental standards which will be introduced by the European Union from 2021, we will not be able to cope with them, and the costs of production will get so high that nobody from us, not from us, but okay, from the European Union consumers, will be ready to pay these high costs for products. And the common agricultural policy at the same time will not be able to cover these costs through the support programs, through these direct payments which we have at the moment. because the budget is also at the moment already huge for the common agricultural policy. And if it's getting even larger or even bigger, it could be problematic from the both political point of view. It's already sensitive topic, very sensitive topic, I must say. But what does it mean for us? On the one hand, again, maybe we will get less competition, because many of the European Union farmers will just give up due to these high environmental standards. We will go to bankruptcy. But on the other hand, for our producers, agricultural producers and food producers who want to export their products to the European Union, it can mean that we will be obliged to cope and to meet with higher environmental standards, European Union environmental standards as well. Will Ukrainian agricultural producers be able to do that or not? It's quite questionable for me, and it will be difficult. All other things are actually also important, and we should, as I said, keep a closer look on them. But maybe, at least this is my personal, at the moment, my personal feeling that we will not have such a critical impact, such a critical influence on the Ukrainian agri-food sector. We cannot afford ourselves the same mistake as we did it with Russia. We also thought that a huge market, neighboring market, the same language, same mentality, no problems at all. 2014, everything changed dramatically. I don't want to say that with European Union the same situation is possible, but who knows? If the next, head of the European Commission will be sort of Mr. Trump person, who will try to play some trade games, trade wars, or I don't know, any kind of national protectionism things, we can be impacted or influenced by such kind of the policies changes very, very dramatically. I don't want to have it. So diversification of the markets, to find as many markets as possible in Africa, in Asia, in Middle and Near East for our agri-food products. The widening of a range of exporters. What does it mean? When we do see the figures, for instance, how many small and medium-sized enterprises are involved in the export activities in such countries like Germany, for instance, or I don't know, even the United States, you will see there that their share will be more than 50%. In Ukraine, it's unfortunately not the case. So we do have a situation then in agri-food sector especially, the export activities are still dominated by the larger enterprises, by the larger companies. That means that we should create from a governmental side, from a state side in Ukraine, more framework opportunities for the small and medium-sized enterprises, but we can do some export activities, but we can be involved in export activities directly and not through the traders. Promotion of the high value-added goods, promotion of a production, my colleagues wanted to say here, promotion of a production of the high value-added products. That's exactly what I mentioned before by my question. Is it good or bad for Ukraine? But we are trading mostly this commodities at the moment in our agri-food sector. Yes, I think that we should change the structure of agri-food export, definitely. We have this aspiration or even the very concrete goal in our sectoral export strategy, which was adopted by the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, previous Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, from Mr. Groisman. And in this export strategy is stated very clearly, but we would like to achieve some numbers. We do have some concrete calculations. We did them to have the, the picture, where do we want to have our agri-food exports in 2026. We want to have more products, more processed products, high value-added products ready for supermarket shelves products in the structure. But I'm quite sure, again, I'm pretty sure, that we will still have a high proportion, high share of the commodities, grains and oilseeds in our export, nevertheless, in 5 years as well. In 10 to 20 years, I hope, and that's one of my personal goals also, to help our agri-food sector to change the structure of agri exports in such a way that we will be dominated, or agricultural and food exports will be dominated by the processed foods on the one hand, on the other hand by the know-hows, by the agri-technologies, by the complex smart farming decisions, by different kind of things which are, for instance, Natalia within their Food Valley are working on. Assuring food safety and quality, well, actually it's very sound and very global step, or very global decision which should be worked on. But that's part of the integration aspirations on the one hand. On the other hand, everybody here, including myself, we are consumers who want to have safe and high quality products in our supermarkets or at our markets, wherever. And again, the governmental task here is, on the one hand, provide the regulations for that, clear regulations for their agribusinesses, on the other hand, to control them and to create their stimulus for businesses, for agricultural companies to produce safe and high quality products, not only for domestic market, by the way, but also for the export.